see, Ebony, you got to stop limiting yourself like this, girl. Like it was just, it was just years and years of me having these internal dialogues. Like, what are you doing? You want to do this. Why are you stopping yourself from doing this?
When was the first time that you felt truly seen? Not just checked out or, hit on, but when was the first time that you felt truly affirmed and actually loved for exactly who you are? Hello, hello, and welcome back to the Be Well Sis podcast. I am your host, Dr. Cassandra Dunbar. How has life been treating you? But more importantly, how have you been treating yourself? Lately, I've been treating myself good. I'm not going to lie. I have been just doing all of the things that bring me some joy. So mainly it's been lots of body care. I've been taking a little bit extra time in the morning to do my skincare, and then again in the evening to do my skincare again with the night edition. So I've been treating myself well. I hope you've been treating yourself well as well. So I'm super excited for today's episode. In this episode, I am joined by Ebony LaDelle, who is an author and editor whose work is reimagining how young Black love is represented on the page. We talk about her breakout debut novel called Love Radio, which I read over the summer, and her latest anthology called You've Got a Place Here Too, which is a collection of love stories set on HBCU campuses across the country. In our conversation, Ebony opens up about her own journey at Howard University, the teacher who changed her life, and why it's so important for young Black teens to see themselves reflected in tender and affirming ways. We also dig into what it means to raise boys who become emotionally intelligent and loving men, the power of place in storytelling, and how literature can shape not just how we love, but how we see ourselves. So this conversation is about romance, yes, but it's also about representation and the radical act of showing Black youth that they deserve love fully and authentically too. So as always, thank you so much for joining. I am so glad you're here. Be well, sis. So I actually want to hop right into You've Got a Place Here Too. So you've edited this book, and it's a compilation of short love stories based in HBCUs. I didn't have the pleasure of going to an HBCU, and if I can go back in time, I wouldn't change a lot. That's one thing that I would change. It really is.
That a lot. Yeah.
It really is. So
I can see that.
Tell me why is the setting of all these stories, why are they all on HBCU campuses?
Yeah. So I really just, number one, I write for young adult readers, right? That's like always my primary focus. And so for Love Radio, it was really writing a story. In all of my stories, it's writing stories that center Black female leads, because I want them to get, feel good about themselves. I want them to be courted and loved on in ways that Black women aren't always. And I'm always thinking about settings to sort of showcase how we are loved, like fully and authentically or whatever. And so when I wrote like Love Radio, for instance, I knew the characters, and then the Detroit setting just sort of came to be because of like some of the things that I was discussing. And it just felt so like natural and pure and amazing. And it was a way for me to show the positive aspects of Detroit that I grew up seeing and loving and appreciating. And I realized that, this is something that I also love doing too. And it was such a big part of the story that people talked about in ways that like, I didn't think too much of it until the book came out. And so I've always liked the idea of doing something related to romance and Howard, because that's where I went. But I just couldn't get it right. Like, I'm like, I don't want to do a full novel. I don't like it just wasn't speaking to me in that way. And so, that's the big part of writing. Sometimes like there are a lot of ideas that I have, but I'm just sort of letting them cook. I'm just trying to figure out what is the best way to do the thing that I really know I want to do. And for this anthology, it was me realizing I had a friend, an author, Cerisia Fennell, who has been telling me you should do an anthology, because she has a few anthologies, Wild Tongues Can't Be Tamed, and a horror anthology as well. And I'm like, you're right. I just can't think of what it's going to be. And then it's just one of those moments where the things clicked. And it was just like,
Yeah.
oh, like I remember talking to family, like my cousin, who I was trying to convince him to go to Howard. And he's like, Howard is not my speed because he's from the South and he wanted something a bit more chill. And I'm
Mhm.
like, yeah, but you could still go to HBCU. It don't have to be Howard,
True.
you know? And I think that was kind of like a thing that popped in my head when I was thinking about it, where it's like, wow, I really want Black people, Black teens in particular, to be able, as they're thinking about like what they want to do next, like where they want to be, how they want to move in life, to consider an HBCU. And the
Mhm.
best way to do it is to show them. You know what I mean? I can show you
Yeah.
better than I can tell you. And
Yep.
so I felt like through these stories, it's a really good way to show what the campus could feel like, how it could speak to you, how it could call to you. And the second big reason why I wanted to do this anthology was because the dedication is dedicated to a teacher who I had the fortune of being in her class. I was a teacher's assistant when I moved away from Detroit to Vegas. And I was in a predominantly white school. And I was just like, she could just see I was struggling. Like, I didn't even realize
Yeah.
she could see how bad I was struggling. And she was the one that was like, Ebony, you need to go to HBCU. And I was
Wow.
like, I am going to Michigan State or University of Michigan. I'm taking my butt back home. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's good. And she's like, no, like she was so aggressive.
Mhm.
She put me in touch with like her boyfriend's daughter, who she was an alum, her husband was an alum. They brought me into their home. I got to experience the campus. And again, the showing, as soon as I
Yeah.
stepped on the campus, I was like, oh,
Yes.
yeah, I'm going here. That's it. We're done. Wrap. You know what I mean? I fell in love with
Right.
DC. I fell in love with like the culture of DC, the culture of Howard. And it was just one of those things where I was like, yeah, this is exactly what I want. So I think about that a lot too as I was putting together this project. And
Yeah.
that's how it came to be.
I love it. So I want to go back and touch on something. So, in what ways do you feel like you were struggling? Was it like you just felt like you just not feel out of place there,
Yeah.
or
I
just the
mean,
vibes? Yeah.
I think it was number one. I had grew up in a Black environment for like a
Mhm.
big chunk of my life, and my parents were divorced, and so it was me spending like different parts, like between the school year and the summer in different places. So like when my parents were in the same city, when we were all in Detroit, it was like me being with family and then spending the summers in the South. When my dad moved, it was me spending the summers with him and the winters with my mother. And then when I swapped, it was just one of those moments where I had a great time in summers
Mhm.
in Detroit. I'm not gonna lie, I because Vegas is way too hot for me in the summers anyway. But I just really felt the stark difference, and like
Yeah.
from the moment I stepped foot onto the school that I went to, the high school, the principal was like, you know, I think you'd be better suited in regular classes because I was an honors student. And it was just one of those things with like from jump, I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
this is why I want to go back. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yep.
this is why I'm frustrated. And so I don't think it was like I was like aggressively like showing it or saying anything. I just really kept to myself. I kind of like made myself small. I didn't
Mhm.
really like, it was like hair in a ponytail, throw some clothes on, let's go to school. You know, like
Yeah.
it wasn't until maybe like the end of my junior year, senior year, where, you know, you're getting involved in activities and I'm like, you know, putting more effort into myself in that way. But I was like, you know, I did track as a way to like cope, you know, and that was
Mhm.
great because I loved it. And I had my friends outside of school. I had friends that didn't go to the high school I went to, and I was always hanging out with them. And so I found my ways. And my dad, he was able to really put together a really great Black community within the city that all these families hung out. So I had that, but it
Yeah.
was just when I went to school, I felt othered. I was in honors classes, so I just definitely felt othered. You
Yep.
know, it's not many of us in the school at the time. And so it just didn't work. And I just didn't feel like I could be myself. And so I
Yeah.
think that is, I'm really, really grateful for Miss Spicer and for teachers who do that because she knew before I knew, like, no, this
Yeah.
is exactly the experience you need. And she was an HBCU alum. And
Mhm.
so I think she was really able to see like, okay, this is the solve you need to help with
Yeah.
this. Yeah.
She really saw you.
She saw
Like,
me exactly.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so I'm so grateful for that.
I could relate to some of that. So I grew up in the suburbs, and by suburbs I mean like predominantly white suburbs. So
Okay.
like there was a handful of Black kids in my elementary school. So I moved in fourth grade, I think it was third or fourth grade, and when I moved for the first like week, they had me in ESL. Mind you, I I'm born and raised in Jersey. So
Yeah.
I told my mom, because my mom is, we're Haitian, right?
Okay.
So I
Mhm.
did have a bit of an accent. Some people say they still
Yeah.
hear my accent. So I did have a little bit of an accent, but
Mhm.
English
Yeah.
is my first language.
Yeah.
So when I told my mom that, I'm like, I'm in like this class, it's just me and another boy, and it's like ESL. And she was trying to teach me like English, but I told her I know English. My mom was like, oh
Yeah.
no. My baby knows. My baby's American. Oh
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
So she went up
Yeah.
to that school and
Yeah.
told them about themselves. And
Good.
it's just that
Good.
othering, like,
That's what my dad said too.
like,
Listen, parents, they gonna look out for you because I remember my dad was sitting
mhm.
there and they're trying to tell him, calm down, and they're looking at me trying to like get me to sweeten the pot. I'm like, nah, you can let
Yep.
he gonna keep talking
He got
because
this. Yep.
he know exactly what I
Mhm.
need, and he's saying exactly what I need to be said in this
Yep.
moment. So I love that your mom did that too. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you gotta be on top of it. And now, one thing that I told my husband, I'm just like, I will never put my child in a predominantly white school or anything. And we've prioritized that.
Yeah.
And I think I'm gonna take the next step and be like, we're going to an HBCU. And I'm gonna have to talk to my friends who are alums to like, you know, help convince and things. But yeah,
Uh-huh.
it's super important to
Yeah.
I think it allows us to really flourish too. People can really
Absolutely.
see you, you know?
Absolutely.
Um,
You're not in classes trying to negotiate with the teacher about like why you deserve a grade. And I'm not saying that don't
yes.
happen at HBCUs either. Like when I speak about the schools and their importance for our community, it is important to say like it is not a utopia.
Sure. Yeah.
But I will say the way that I was able to really just show up as myself on campus and in classrooms or like, be able to experiment with even just like something as simple and crazy as like, oh, you can have natural hair, you can
Mm,
have this, you can do that. And like whether or not you do it or not, you know what I mean? Like for me, I
yep.
was like, well, I don't have time to actually learn how to do it. But also
Mhm.
seeing people on campus who are just
Yes.
like, I'm doing the big chop, I'm doing this, I'm trying this out. They
Mhm.
have locks one year, cut it all off. Next year, they talking about curls. Then they straight. It was
Mm.
just like you were just able to experiment in ways where nobody is going to be like othering you, like you
It's not a
said,
thing.
questioning you.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, okay, we see you. You're
Yep.
doing this today.
Yep.
And so when you don't have that holding you down, I think it allows you to flourish in so many other ways that you don't even consider because you're like,
Yeah.
I can focus on my education. I can focus on, what I want to do next. I can focus on all these things without feeling like I have to fight someone about me being
Yes.
me.
Yes. Yep. And yeah, to your point, like I remember I used to keep my hair in braids, I still do for the most part.
Hmm.
And I come from, why do you think it's like my hair and why is it a conversation?
Every
I
single
have
time.
shoulder length hair one
Yeah.
day.
Hmm.
Next day, it's like down my back. You're like, wow, your hair grows so
Yeah.
fast. I don't want to talk about this.
Yeah,
No, like, leave me
whatever.
alone,
If
please.
that's what you feel, that's what you feel. I ain't got
Yeah,
time for
like
this. Yeah.
yeah.
It's too
So
much.
I definitely get that. So I want to talk a little bit more about just why it's important for us to be seen, loved on, and doted on, and courted, and all of those things. And I love especially that you focus on young adults,
Mhm.
because this is something that I just did not see in my everyday.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would love to know like why that was important for you.
Yeah, I think of like, it started with Love Radio. I think of like the coming of age movies that I watched when I was younger. And the lack of coming of age black movies, teen movies that we had access to, right?
Yeah.
And and even the books, like especially the books. And so for me,
Yeah.
my like I would say my YA romance was, love and basketball, like in,
Hmm.
film form. I love Jones. I was a teenager, like
Hmm.
loving Love Jones, and it was too old for me. But
Hmm. Hmm.
I felt like that showed like a realistic representation. They were in the Midwest. There were just so many things I felt like, that's like what I would want it to feel like and look like and be like. And it's because both of my parents are like huge romantics. My mother always
Aw,
watched these movies. She also used to read like those freaking Fabio books that I would like, sneak and read as
yes.
well. Well, not, I didn't
Same.
have to sneak too much. Well, some of them I did, but for the most part, she trusted me to read the books and also for us to talk about them. But it just felt like it was a hodgepodge of things that I was getting and also
Mhm.
not getting. And so I was a bit pessimistic about romance when I was younger. Like I was fake, like I was faking basically.
Mhm.
But I think a lot of it was just like wanting to see more of like what it looked like in a healthy way. And also being a teenager and seeing how like hurtful, people can be,
Yeah.
because we are just like off of adrenaline and emotions and just reactive. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of teens, they want to do it the right way, but they don't know how, and they're influenced
Yeah.
by their friends, and there's so much happening. And so I always looked at it like, well, if I can start in YA, if I can start with teens and they have, a lot of people say, your characters are very mature from their age. Well, I was reading Fly Girl when I was a
Same.
teenager,
Yep.
and them characters were way too mature for, but like it was
Mhm.
also realistic in some regard. I wanted to do the same thing. I wanted teens to feel like they were reading up so that they can aspire to be that. And so
Yeah.
whether or not they're like, like Prince Jones and Love Radio up there
Mhm.
going on, like, planning all these dates, it's like, bruh, plan a date at an ice cream shop. You know what I mean? Like,
I
do
was
something
wondering.
cute that like and also cheap or free. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? To like spend time with the person and actually get to know them. And I really want teens to understand early that if you start these healthy habits now, um, you won't have all this guilt. You won't, have all this trauma. Like you can be able to like move into the world and have healthy relationships, because that might not be your person for the rest of your life, but like
Right.
at least you can say that like, oh, I had this wonderful relationship when I was a teenager. We went to prom. It didn't work out, because we went to college and we just went different ways. But like,
Mhm.
I can still have that like first love experience for the most part that felt real and special and like
Yes.
important of the moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thinking about Prince and his dates, I was just like, Prince had money. Like, didn't he buy her skates? Um,
Yeah, but
at
he
one
was a
point.
radio. I know, but he was a radio host, and I tried to do as much of where I could say like hookups and like show that like there were
Yeah.
things that he had access to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was like, yeah, that day he did buy the skates. He had a hookup to get into the skating ring. I don't want to go through too
Yes.
much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then there
Yeah.
was a date that he did where he had a hookup at a bookstore. So it was like
Yes.
trying to show where he like spent money and where he was able to like
Yeah.
get a deal.
Yeah.
Because that's what you got to do sometimes if you want to
True.
court.
True, true. But the thing that I really love about that book is, again, I was telling you, I have two boys. So I look at things about, I really want to raise children that grow into men that are safe and are
Mhm.
loving and
Mhm.
kind and all of those things. And looking at Prince, I was just like, I love this.
Thank
Um,
you.
what high schooler, maybe I just didn't know them, but like, he just was just like a 20-year-old really, or a
Yeah.
25-year-old in his mentality, and it
Yeah.
makes sense too because of his life experience, like his
Yeah.
mom and things.
Yeah. I mean, I was
Um
thinking a lot about that in Love Radio because I knew that I wanted him to be very mature, and it's
Mhm,
why he had all these life experiences that
mhm.
were the adultification of teens. We
Yeah,
talk about it, it's a thing.
yeah,
But in speaking on it of like, how can I show this in a positive way, because some teens, this is their life, this is the hands
yep,
that they're dealt. And so if I can show him actually like using it in a way that's healthy and positive, then it will inspire hopefully some teenage boys to be like, oh, I could be like that. Like
yep,
I could do some of these things, and it can make my girlfriend feel special, and she deserves that. And I just want that we're talking about this, like, what is it? The male epidemic and all this stuff. Like
mm,
when you think
mm,
about our generation of men, like I'm still hopeful that, you know what I mean, that there can be
mhm,
change.
mhm.
But also I'm like, let me get to these young cats and like make sure that they
Yes,
know like you don't have to be this way. And I think
yep,
sometimes too, when we talk about teenage boys who turn into men, who are like watching their uncles and big brothers and fathers, treat Black women a certain way.
yep,
How can I be that person to like, you know what I mean, help
yeah,
like change that narrative where it's like
yeah,
you don't have to be that way. You don't even like how this feels. So
right,
stop doing this. You don't have to listen to him, but if it's all you know, it's all you know. And so if they're able to read it in a book and be like, actually, see, I knew I was right. I knew I didn't have to act
yeah,
like this. I didn't have to act reckless like this for me to be able to like have a relationship. Or I know I'm not soft. You know what I mean? If
right,
like
right,
I choose to like respect my woman, you know what I mean? Even if I
right,
am a teenager, I don't have to be out in these streets like sleeping with all these people because that's what I'm told to do. It's just
yep,
stuff like that that I'm tired of it. I know we all
yeah,
are. And so I want to be able to show that in stories so that we can have examples where it's like, you don't have, this is not one way to be.
Yeah. And, just as you're intentional about how you write the characters, we need to be intentional about how we speak to the kids around us and what we model for them too, because they're
Mhm.
always looking, even if it may not be our child that comes from us, like we're part of communities,
Exactly.
right?
Yes,
So
yes,
they're taking little
they
things
are.
from us and we want to make sure that we give good tidbits for them to take, you
I
know?
mean, you
So,
would be surprised when I do school visits how many teenage boys are sat. Like they just be I'm like, "Oh, you
mm,
some of the stuff." Because sometimes it's like I'm going into classrooms and sometimes they're signing up to be a part of the events. And when I tell you them signups, those boys be in there. I'm like, "Oh,
I
y'all
love
really want to
it.
talk about this?" You know what I
I
mean? So
love
let's
it.
talk about this. And I'm being blunt.
Mhm.
Like, I wrote
Mhm.
this book because y'all need to know how to treat girls. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And they're like,
Mhm.
okay, so, and they're asking questions. And so I do think that, like, if we can provide a safe space for them to feel like they're not going to be judged in the
Yeah.
way that, like, boys are judged when we have these conversations, or when I think of some of
True.
these sex ed classes. Um, one of my sex ed classes was wow. It was just like we were to pull from a hat, and y'all gonna write these questions anonymously, and we're gonna pull from a hat, and I'm gonna read it. I'm just like, what is happening?
Actually,
You know what I
that
mean?
was in mine too. Now that I think about it.
It was so problematic. I mean, I'm not saying it was problematic in that, like, maybe it needed to be done. Like, I'm not in class, but I'm just saying, like, it was just the way it was happening in my school. I was like, this is toxic,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the way the
Yeah.
answers are. I feel like we should probably have someone in this class who actually knows how to talk about this and not like
Mhm.
a random teacher who's like, yeah, this is extra money. Let me like do this class.
Right.
Like someone who's intentional about it. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh my goodness. I just had a flashback.
I
My
know.
my sex ed teacher, she used to sit on the desk. She sat on the desk. It was hot. It was like the end of the year. So she went to go grab her bottle of water. She did not grab water. She grabbed like rubbing alcohol and took a sip. I'm just like, first of all, did you not smell it? Like she was like out of this world, like just so ditzy. And one of the speaking of like taking the questions out of the
Mm-hmm.
thing, one of the questions was, if I eat a lot of strawberries, will my stuff taste like? And one of the boys wrote this. And me being so naive, I was
Yeah.
very much a late bloomer. I was like, I don't get the question. Like we just what do you mean? I don't get it. And
Would be
she's like,
what?
man, what is to taste like what? Like, I don't get it. Like the kids, I don't get it. So, and she's fumbling through the answer, and
Yeah.
I'm just like,
Yeah.
this is a mess.
That's the other honestly, that's probably my real gripe with that. Is like if you're not able to really answer these questions in a way that is like respectful and calm. And then like the teachers will get frustrated. They start yelling, well, don't ask these type of, I'm just like,
Yes,
we need a whole new system. Throw this
for
away.
sure,
Start
for
over. This is
sure,
not going to work.
for sure. But I mean, at least we come from places where at least they attempt it.
Yeah,
Because
that's real. That is real.
down here,
Yeah.
I'm in Charlotte now. Down here,
Okay.
it's like
We don't
just
talk
don't do
about,
it, and that's
we don't
it.
talk about Bruno.
Yes. Yes, we'll talk about Bruno. I want to touch on, since we were talking about Love Radio a little bit, how Detroit really was like the third main
hmm
character. And I loved it so much. I've never been to Detroit,
hmm
but the way you brought the city to life and like personified it in a way was really, really beautiful. So did you do the same thing with the stories here in making the HBCUs like a third character in a way?
Absolutely. I think that actually just seeing the reaction to it, and it was purely selfish in why I wrote about it. It was because I knew up when I realized that Prince Jones was going to be a radio host slash, love advice expert. I was like, oh, I have to write about the city because that's how I grew up with the radio.
Mhm.
Like it was such a important, music in general was such
Of
a,
course.
such a heartbeat of the city. And then actually seeing that become a thing or people were excited about it, I realized for the anthology I was like, I really want to be intentional about that as well. And so when I went to pitch the anthology to certain people, I was really it was like both things were happening at once, where it was like I was figuring out the authors, I was figuring out authors who went to HBCUs, figuring out authors if they didn't, like what type of tie to the story would be like really connective in terms of like what maybe they lived in the city that the HBCU was in, or they
Mm.
were part of a sorority, or you know what I mean? Any of
Yep.
those things that would make it feel very like, authentic.
Mhm.
And I was also trying to make sure I was showing HBCUs across the country.
Mm.
And then there's HBCU, the Virgin Islands that we featured. And so that was really important to just show like we're going east, we're going west, we're going to the south, like you're getting the full experience. And so because of that, there were certain ones that I had in mind, and I did some research of with those HBCUs, and we're like, "Oh, this could be a really cool fun fact." So as I was pitching the concept to authors, I was also pitching like, "Could you do this or could you do that?" Or like for authors who were from the HBCU, some of it was just like, "Can you just write a love story, like however
Mhm.
you want that to look?" And that was really really fun because we're not only showing like the stories in present day, but we're also pulling from the past, and so you're able to see like different variations of like what HBCU life was like and is like.
I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. Um, I'm really excited for more people to get their hands on this book,
Thank you.
especially our young people, because yeah, college is such a special time. But I think when you're in a nurturing environment that's able to really see you as a
Hmm.
person, it just will make such a difference
It does.
in everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it absolutely does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's what I want. I even know people who like went to grad school at HBCUs and they loved it, and they were like, "Oh, I wish I went to undergrad." And so I'm just trying to think about like for me, I got that knowledge from my teacher when I was in high school because she's like, "You have to do this," and I just think about like, wow, like what would have happened if I would have known sooner, or what would have happened
Mhm.
if like some of my friends would have known sooner? Because I'm telling my friends like while I'm there, like, "Yo, I'm so happy I'm here." They're
Yeah.
like, dang, I should have done that. And so it's
Mhm.
like, well, this book can be that,
Yep.
like if you are a sophomore in high school and you pick up this book and you're like, oh, okay, I can see myself going here, then
Yep.
like you're already like thinking about it earlier than I ever did.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, you mentioned that you worked in publishing.
Hmm.
So, how is it being an author? So, you've seen both sides
Hmm.
of the process.
Hmm.
Do you think being on the inside, so being in publishing, did that help you at all in terms of, I don't know, like not understanding, but like, I know there's a lot of pressure with like deadlines and all of
Hmm.
that stuff. Like, did having the other insight, did that help you at
Yeah.
all? Or was it like even
Oh,
more stressful?
absolutely. No, that's definitely the privilege of being in publishing, and I'm thankful for it. It was actually like it wasn't something I even considered doing, and that's another thing. That's what Howard helped me realize was like, oh, I
Oh.
I want to be in publishing too.
Hmm.
I think I was able to it helped me realize I could just have multiple things that I really wanted to do. And I
Mhm.
think what happened was I realized that when I was in school, like, oh, I still want to be a writer, but I also could do this thing too. I could also work in publishing because I was a marketing assistant at the Howard bookstore at the
Oh.
time. And working in marketing, I'm like, oh, there's event signings, there's this. Like, I just realized, like, oh, like you could have this amazing book, but if nobody knows about it, nobody's gonna know about it.
Yeah.
And so that, and also just being in community with people who look like me, who were purchasing copies of books, I was like, oh, we need more of this. And so I moved to New York. I went to grad school to get my MS in publishing, and then I got into the publishing industry. And I would say, like, even in terms of having 11 different contributors, like I felt like I was back at work because
Yeah.
I have marketing plans. I have different books that I'm working on a season, and there are multiple books. And so you're juggling multiple things at once. And so I'm juggling deadlines for them for the editorial process. I'm working with my in-house editor to make sure that we're hitting our deadlines for them to hit their deadlines. And so it's
Mhm.
like a lot of back and forth. And I felt the same way if like I'm marketing a book, but I'm talking to their editorial team or talking to sales, just like being that sort of like keeping everything moving. And the same with getting assets together and like
Mhm.
working with the marketing team in house or any publicity things, or even just when we did the cover reveal and like one sale, just collaborating with all the contributors and seeing who's
Yeah.
down. There was just a lot of like parts like that where I'm like, yeah, I definitely have done this before. And
Yep.
so I knew how to get right into the game in that way. And also,
Yeah.
I think, not I think, I know, working in the industry, I've worked with some of these authors before as like their marketer, at least one. I'm like one or two. I can't like think in the moment. But yeah,
Mhm.
I've worked with them as well. And so, my reputation, these people know me, they know how I work, they trust my work.
Yep.
They have been introduced to me as an author, so they know the intent and the type of work that I want to produce and put out into the world. And so I definitely think that also helped me. Because the list is crazy good. Like I'm very,
Yeah.
very proud of it. And I think that definitely that was in part to um, what people know about me and the work that I do.
I love it. Do you did you intend to be an author out when you were in school or graduating school, or you're like, I'm just gonna go into publishing, do the back end of getting books out there, or did you always want to write as well?
So the funny thing is, and I there's a quote, I'm a butcher. I always butcher quotes. So much of being an adult is getting back to the things that you enjoyed as a child.
Yeah.
And it's a quote that I've used before when I do school visits. And it's very much me. When I was in elementary school, there's literally like, I have these little booklets. I don't have the books, but I used to like create books and give them to my parents, like just staple them. My dad just reminded me the other day of like this kidnapping story that I did when I was like 11 that he asked to read and it wasn't finished. And he was like, and I was like, he came to me, he was like, when you gonna finish this? And I don't know where that book is, but I find it hilarious. He just brought this to my attention. Um, I loved writing when I was young. And I even like we had a fifth grade booklet where I wrote a story, a little, I guess it was like a prose poem about the Garden of Eden because my
Mhm.
grandmother had a garden and I loved it. And I had a little bio and it said one day I hope to publish one of my stories or poems.
Wow.
I do not consider myself a poet, but at the time I did. But at the
Mhm.
time I loved words.
Mhm.
And I think when I started to get a little older, number one, I think slam poetry just did me in. I was like, oh, I got to go up there and do that. I'm not about to be a writer, like they're so good. I'm not like that. I'm not commanding the stage like that. And that's fine. Like everybody should know their lane. I know my lane. But I think it messed me up so much. I was like, oh, I'm not going to be a writer. And so like I had like kind of shared my pieces here and there. And then I just went into myself and was like, oh no, this is not my thing. It's too precious. And then I'm starting to read works from other people and I'm like, oh, I'll never be that good and
Mm.
blah, blah, blah. And I think when I got to Howard and I worked in the bookstore and then also like seeing some of the writers on Howard's campus and how confident they were in their words and how, some of them had been doing this for years and years. I'm like, I'm not there. So I really started to psych myself out. And I think
Yeah.
I felt like, oh, maybe it was meant for me to be interested in writing so I can actually be a publisher, like I could be on the inside.
Yeah.
And then I went to New York and I got into publishing and that part of me was still like itching,
Yep.
and then, learning about like Toni Morrison being an editor and a
Yep.
writer. And I'm like, see, Ebony, you got to stop limiting yourself like this, girl. Like it was just, it was just years and years of me having these internal dialogues. Like, what are you doing? You want to
Yeah.
do this. Why are you stopping yourself from doing this? And so I'm very thankful that like I felt like the universe gave me like signs along the way, like nope, you're still supposed to. Nope, you're still
Yep.
supposed to. And I think when Love Radio finally came out, it was like the biggest release because I was like, yeah, see,
Yeah.
you can do both. You can
Yes,
be
and you
both.
listened. The
Yeah.
universe gave you signs, but you listened.
Yeah,
Super
yeah. They were
important.
loud. I was like, "Oh my god," you know what I
Like, all
mean?
right,
But
fine.
also, the alternatives is like not hearing that at all, which that seems like the scariest thing to me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
To feel like you're getting these signs to do this thing, and then you're like, "I don't want to hear it no more." And the universe is like, "Fine, you don't have
Well,
to."
okay.
Like,
Yep.
yeah. So I knew to
Yeah.
take heed. I knew
Yeah.
better.
All right. So you mentioned that these stories take place on different campuses of HBCUs across the country. So, what are some examples of like the themes that these are exploring?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not gonna go into all of them because again, it's 12 of them. But like I could say, for instance, like the highest of the seven hills, Donnie Walton. She's a FAMU alum. she's writing about second chance romance. It's really great. It's like a multi-generational story of like going to, being in a white school and sort of having that experience and transitioning into an HBCU. It's really great. And it's what we sort of end the book on. You've got stories like I'm trying to think, Second Line First Dance by Farrah Rashan, who is a romance author. She also went to Xavier, and that's what the book is about. And also, I asked her to write like a story about the Mardi Gras experience. And so that one is like an enemies to lovers romance. And she does such a good job of like, when you see why they're sort of enemies and like what they're debating about regarding Mardi Gras, it's really great. It's really informational. I'm trying to think what else. Elizabeth Acevedo did his flying lessons, and that is in verse. I love that she writes in verse. And so I was really hoping that she would do that. But for her story, it is about a Dominican student who is going to Tuskegee because he wants to be a pilot. He wants to follow in the footsteps of Tuskegee Airmen. So that's another way to sort of incorporate the history and like playing with the format. And format is like a big thing that authors do in this book too. So like Nicola Yoon, her story is called Romantic Studies, and her format is sort of like, I don't want to give it away, but it's really cool and very much related to like the college experience. And so yeah, those are just a few of some of the great stories. There's also queer love rep in this book, and that was something really important to me.
Yeah.
And also just like male stories from a male perspective, that was important. So we have a few of those. So yeah, just like featuring multiple schools from all over.
Beautiful. Super, super excited for this. And I love for this book, it sounds good too for people who maybe aren't readers and they're like, I
Mm-hmm.
can't, my attention span is not that long. I can't read hundreds of
Yeah.
pages. This is great because it's so many different stories. So it
Yeah.
keeps your attention.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Reluctant readers, that's one of the things that short stories are really great for, even
Hmm.
in teens. They're great for reluctant readers because you're building that muscles to start reading. And I think it is important. I think some of the times people get so burnt out by like reading a story, not being able to finish it,
Hmm.
that you sort of get that gratification. You're able to like read one story, sit with it, move on, maybe cook dinner, do whatever. And then a few
Yeah.
days later, come back into it and read another story. So
Yeah.
I highly suggest you pick up a copy because it is a easier read. And even for the audiobook, the same thing. If you're like listening to one of the stories on your way to work, like you're able to finish one story, by the
Yeah.
time you get there, maybe. So absolutely.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, I have a couple of lightning round questions.
Okay.
So in the morning, coffee or tea or neither?
I love me some tea, but in the morning I need one cup. I need one good cup of coffee. I try not to go crazy. I usually like to do morning coffee and then afternoon, evening tea.
Hmm.
I definitely need one cup of coffee in the morning.
Okay. So if there was one book that you, outside of your own,
hmm
that you would read over and over again, what would it be?
I'm gonna say this because it was the book that I did read over and over again when I was younger. And if we're talking about YA or coming to age, I would say The Skin I'm In. That was the book for me by Sharon Flake that was like, oh, I could write like this. I could write
Mhm.
about experiences that are important to me. That was like the first book where I felt like I was able to read about colorism in a way that was like not ick, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But just
Yeah.
like talking about it and like this transformation of this girl feeling confident about herself. So yeah, I think that book was a book that I read over and over again that helped me in a lot of ways.
Do you have a fictional crush from like a book, movie?
Uh I would say like Prince Jones as an adult would probably be my fictional crush
I
because
feel
I
you.
wrote him.
Yeah.
That's the only reason why I'm like, I feel like all my the the
Yeah.
guys that I write are fictional crushes because I'm just trying to write the best guy for the female character. And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, this is what we want. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, so I feel like a collective. It's like, yeah, if people are like, oh, I love Prince, it's like, you know what? I should love Prince too. So and I do love both of them. So why not?
Yeah. What's the best love song of all time in your opinion?
Oh my God. A song that I really, really love, and I say because of the fire, I'd say Whitney Houston's All the Man That I Need.
Okay.
It's so passionate. It's so beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think
Okay.
it speaks to, like, this is what I want in a man, like, and I love that,
Yes.
like, it's her talking about, like, what she thought love was versus what she realized it could be, which I
Yeah.
think is really beautiful. And her voice is just, one
I
of the greatest
mean,
voices of our
period.
time, like,
Period.
so,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Okay. And then one last one. Okay. Slow burn love or love at first sight?
Slow burn. I mean, even
Yeah.
though it's annoying, I think it's like it's annoying and also it's so gratifying. You know what I mean? Like it's like for This Could Be Forever, my second book, I did write about love at first sight, and I was definitely not a believer in it until I wrote it. And I was like, okay, I
Oh,
could also see how, like, if there's someone I mean, honestly, I think that's like the dream, right? Because it's just less drama, where it's just like
right.
if a man falls into your lap and you're like, oh, you're the one. That's like honestly what everybody really wants. We just don't want to
Truly.
deal with the drama. It's like, can we just find our person and we could just move forward with life?
Right.
But I think in terms of probably just the drama and the effect and like the reading or like the
Yes.
TV or whatever, you know what I mean? It makes for good TV and
Yeah.
books and all that stuff, I guess. So yeah, I'm
Okay.
gonna stick by
All right.
it.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, Ebony. So, where can the
Thank
people
you.
find you online and all of the things that you are offering? So,
Yeah,
yes.
so you can buy a copy of this book. It is available all the retailers. There also is also audio book version of it. So if you're not a huge like reader, but you want to listen, audiobook is reading.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a really crazy cast of readers because there are multiple POVs in the stories. There are narrators for each story, new narrators. So it's a really immersive experience.
Nice.
And you can find that online too. Local indies. I always say shop local, support your local independent bookstore, small
Mm-hmm.
business.
Yep.
I'm always going to ride for support your Black owned independent
Yep.
bookstore. And then you can also follow me on at Ebony LaDelle at all platforms. And we're also going on tour. And so if you go to ebonyladelle.com/events, you'll be able to see what cities I'll be in and who will be participating in those events.
Oh, super dope. So I will have all of those things linked down below in the show notes. That
Thank
way
you
it's an
so
easy
much.
click. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. And I'm really, really excited for this book and again, for people to get their hands on it. I
Thank you
appreciate your
so
time.
much.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening to this episode of Be Well Sis. If you'd like to get in touch with us, there's a link in the show notes. Be Well Sis is hosted by me, Dr. Cassandra Dunbar, and produced by Edit Audio. Don't forget to hit follow so you never miss an episode. Until next time, be well, sis.